You are listening to the Push Media Podcast Network.
This is good shit.
She told the director she was trying to get into school. He said, put them goggles on and get in the pool. And tuck that dick, baby, because we got a medal to win. It's the NCAA, and this is the Ivy League of swimming. Do you think this is a joke? Do you think there aren't millions of people watching at home? Do you think people aren't getting ready to rumble when we get ready to dive in that pool and swim? Do you think after your Ivy League education, there aren't millions of dollars to be made in sponsorship and advertising? Do you think Nike isn't knocking down my door day after day and I'm denying them the right to speak to a transgendered swimmer because it would be a violation of the NCAA Title IX Slavery Endowment Fund stipulations of indentured servitude? Do you think that's not the case? So you better buckle up, lady. You better lather up those nuts, and you better decide it's time to focus and get in the pool. You want to be famous. You take it off, you tuck it, you dive in. Welcome to the program. That was an impression of somebody, I hope, because it certainly wasn't me speaking. Let that just be a representation of one of the opinions that you probably have heard over the last week about swimmer, superstar, phenomenon, cultural icon, collegiate women's swimmer, Leah Thomas of the University of Pennsylvania, the Ivy League school known for its athletic programs. And to be fair, if we're going to pretend like the Ivy League, particularly the University of Pennsylvania, which I know to be personally filled with European exchange students who cheated their way through high school and are spending tuition money on Adderall to continue to cheat via advanced methods on tests in college. And now they have degrees, and hopefully they are performing surgery on some people because that's what they're churning out there, that type of culture. So maybe if we're going to pretend that the University of Pennsylvania has athletics that people give a shit about, if that were to be the case, it would probably be something as absurdly stupid and nonsensical as collegiate swimming. Swimming is something some people were interested in 12, 16 years ago when Michael Phelps could do it really fast in a pool and then smoked weed before he did Dancing with the Stars. That was the last time anyone gave a shit about swimming. Before that, perhaps Johnny Weissweller, who played Tarzan in the 1930s in the fucking picture shows, okay? So if you're going to tell me or your coworker or your parents or your wife or your spouse, or if you just have the gall to share an opinion about Leah Thomas with anybody at all, you better fucking start with, now I don't give a shit about swimming, but because every opinion I've heard from, I've heard a range of people talking about it, from people who are fans of hockey to people who have primary colors in their hair. I know a lot of different folks because I'm a cosmopolitan motherfucker. Diversify your worldview. But most opinions I've heard all sucked because they came from this weird false place of pretending to give a shit about the integrity of the sport, as if they were fans all their lives, as if they had fond memories of their father taking them hand in hand to swim meets, to watch the athletes that everyone knew from the covers of cereal boxes, from adorable fucking local car commercials, just the people you grew up with in your childhood, baseball players, football players, and swimmers, people everyone could relate to. The lifestyle of the bad boy swimmer, of Ryan Lochte with platinum hair, who yet again was on Dancing with the Stars, I think. If you are to be a professional swimmer, part of that requires you to do the waltz on ABC. So now that I think I have accurately illustrated just how stupid swimming is, I need, every now and then, you got to have some sense smacked into you and just remember, oh yeah, I don't give a shit about swimming at all. You might have an opinion about the merits of transgenderism. Sure, you're allowed to have an opinion. In fact, it's encouraged, or it used to be, but share it. Go ahead. But have some balls, or lack thereof, in whatever sense you may choose, to state that opinion solely because you have it. Don't mask it under this false pretense of, I'm just upholding the integrity of a game that we all love and cherish from our childhood. Swimming is a sport you do in case you're about to die. If you're in a body of water and you're worried you're about to die, you start swimming or you drown. I don't think a sport qualifies if it's something you do just before or in order to prevent your death. You will never be in a life or death situation and just, shag a fly ball or work on a knuckleball. It just does. You're not going to run a post route if it's a life or death situation. You might start swimming. Same reason I think track and field, it gets a little iffy to argue it's a sport. It's certainly athleticism and very fundamental, basic athletic competing. But a sport, I don't know, because it's something you'd do if a rhinoceros was chasing you. Okay? So let's first hone on what we really think is a sport. We got stadiums being built for nerds to show up and play Fortnite, and other nerds not as talented with little to no finger dexterity watching them cheering, eating popcorn. We don't give a fuck about swimming. No one is at these meets. You might have an opinion about someone wanting to give their child hormones before therapy. Before puberty, excuse me. You might have an opinion on anything related to gender roles, which is great. Go ahead, share them. But yet, again, you don't care about swimming at all. At the fuck all. You might care if Leah Thomas still has her dick and balls. Actually, I'm fucking certain of the fact you care about that. You might not care pro Leah Thomas's dick and balls or, anti Leah Thomas's dick and balls, but you're curious. I can promise you of that. You want to know. That might be the only reason you're following the story. But you don't care about the institution that is the fairness of women swimming. Now, if you're a parent of a girl who is an aspiring collegiate swimmer whose best shot at an education to make it out these motherfucking streets is a collegiate swimming scholarship, maybe there's an argument to be made. You're a little pissed off that Leah Thomas is racking up medals and taking scholarship money. All right, fair. That's something I could be open to a little bit more. But even if you're one of those parents arguing that, I promise you don't give a fuck about the institution of swimming itself. You just care about your little girl. And the fact that some of the other little girls might have a dick and balls. If anything, swimming with a dick and balls, I would imagine, and again, I'm no swimmer, it's only something I've ever done when I thought I was about to drown. You're carrying extra weight, right? Wouldn't it slow you down, if anything? I can't imagine being a man in this field of competition, having a dick and balls in the pools to drag along is going to help you swim faster than these other girls. I could be wrong about that. I'm no scientist. But, 50 pounds of bricks or 50 pounds of feathers, I don't think that applied at all, but it felt like a good way for me to wiggle out of what I might have just started off there. You don't give a shit about swimming. I've heard people with beards who love hockey explain, this is completely unfair. What's next? We got to save women's sports. We don't have to save women's sports at all. We can let women's sports, if you're a capitalist fella, if you want the free market to solve most problems, let's just say you are. And again, if you drive a pickup truck with a beard and wear a hockey jersey to a formal event, you're probably one of those dudes. We don't need to save women's sports. Does anyone attend women's sports? The answer to that is no. The most dominant and highly paid professional women's athlete in America right now, this is a fact, is locked up in Russia right now for bringing a weed pen into Russia. That's a real-ass fact. Brittany Griner, the most dominant WNBA player right now who plays for who cares, has been in Russia, kidnapped a prisoner in jail For months now. No one gives a shit, talks about it, or even knows. If that ain't proof you don't give a shit about Leah Thomas's dick and balls, I don't know what is. Your Honor, no further questions. Now, that might not have been the strongest argument, and I certainly have a few opinions on gender and transgenderism on its role within the gender spectrum. But what I will never pretend to be is someone passionate about swimming. So, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the merits of Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas is a transgendered swimmer who just won the 500-meter freestyle. Who cares? Again, it's a swimming thing. And people were mad. And it's fair. It's a decent, controversial, especially today, argument to have. It's a real hot-button issue whether or not someone has a dick and balls and they shouldn't. I don't really... And before I start to unpack that, I don't know if this is wrong of me, and I say this with no hate in my heart at all, truly, and genuinely. But when the fuck did this become even a thing? I feel like, and I'm not trying to wipe out anyone's history here, but do you just feel like transgender issues within like the news or the culture at large started in 2018? Does it just feel like this is a 4-year-old issue? And you would think that this would, I've seen Milk. I understand that there have been issues for minorities and specifically sexual orientation minorities within society. People know what happened. Harvey Milk got shot. The San Francisco was a wild time. The government was involved. Hippies, Manson, society, blah, blah, blah. Sure, Stonewall, there's a history. The rainbow means gay stuff now. But the transgender thing, I just can't shake the feeling it's 48 months old. That's not to minimize anyone's struggle. That's not to make anyone regret or yearn for their former dick and balls. But this issue just feels new to me. Step one on this issue. Secondly, if we were talking about boxing, if we were talking about cage fighting, a contact sport, completely different argument. There would be much more of a reason to give a shit whether you were a casual fan of boxing or UFC fighting or whatever the fuck, to have an opinion if there was someone who used or was born a male, now identifying as a woman, fighting a biological woman. That would be far more controversial, and that would require something. Because at the end of the day, regardless of your political ideology, your thought, your affiliation, no matter how you vote in the booth, what we would be watching is a dude beating the shit out of a woman in a cage or an octagon or a square or a rhombus or any other shape. That's something different. I personally, like I said, don't care about swimming. So when I hear everyone all of a sudden offering their opinion on the very nuanced and complex issue of gender, swimming is not one I pretend to give a shit about. And it's put me in a peculiar situation where I've been saying, you don't give a shit. You don't care. This isn't a real issue. I've just, by default, been trying to deconstruct collegiate swimming as an entire institution. I say good. I say if you want to be a collegiate swimmer, you have to be transgendered. Let's get it interesting. If this gets so much news attention with just one transgendered swimmer, what if they all were transgendered? Then all of a sudden we have a sport. We have spectators. You might have donors. You might have a scandal. You might have a Coach K come in and start teaching the third-gendered Indian exchange students how to swim real fast in a pool on ESPN 8 The Ocho. In which case, boy, would that get the money flowing. I say go for that. It's a shame some girl might lose her scholarship because a guy wants to say he's a girl and start swimming. He might even be a girl. He might believe that. In fact, I don't even question whether or not a transgendered person believes themselves, whether or not they are, in fact, transgendered, because it's their own mind. How would anyone ever tell another person how to perceive themselves? You can't help that. That's so out of your hands. It's a little in your hands. You should work on being able to keep it in your hands, but that has nothing to do with another person's opinion. So regardless of if you feel transgendered people are really people, which that was probably not the most delicate way for me to say that, or you're let's just say pro or against. If you're either one or the other, you have to keep in mind your opinion doesn't fucking matter unless you yourself identify as someone who is transgendered. Your opinion ain't swaying anybody. No one's going to hear your argument and be like, you know what? You're right. Time to go to Cole's. That's not going to happen ever at all. And it's a tricky thing because I think this problem is kind of brand new, which makes me very suspicious of its origin. But I would like to share a story that happened, I think it was 2 years ago to me, where I went on a trip once with my grandpop, who is a fascinating dude. Used to work for the government, very suspicious and shady background, has a whole bunch of security, this and that's, and a bunch of pictures of him taking vacations by himself when he had a family at home to, national parks out west, which, as we all know, are really just mountains disguised as inner cities for the rich to hide and build businesses with alien lizards. But apart from all that, I go on a trip with my grandpa about 2 years ago to Yellowstone. And at first, we stop at Jackson Hole, which is where, Kanye lives. I was actually there when Kanye was recording, what was the I Hate Being Bipolar, It's All, Yay, that album. I actually helped him master that album while I was in Jackson Hole. That's a real fact I made up. But I was in Jackson Hole at that time. And one morning, we were staying at just a rinky-dink motel because it was fun. That's the way to do that trip if you're going to do it. And we go over to the little, diner thing in the morning, me and my grandpa, and we're sitting there, and we're talking to the waitress, because my grandpa is a dude who would talk to anybody. It could be a waitress he just met, and within 20 minutes, he is going to be asking about what college the waitress's daughter is looking at. He's just that type of person. And he's also an older dude. He's 84 or 5 now at the time, so he's still in his 80s then. And despite being an older guy, he was always someone who I was kind of like surprised with his nuanced takes on things. Because I think a lot of people are guilty of just assuming a grandparent is going to think the grandparent thing on a certain issue. They are the people you love, but every now and then drop a racial slur. You know what I mean? So there's that element to this. And we're eating breakfast in Jackson Hole, and on the TV, there was a story that the graduating class of West Point, the military college, was going to let graduating, cadets or whatever the term is, sit on the side of the aisle because the aisles were separated by male and female. They were going to let the graduating class sit on the side of the gender they identify with. And I heard this and thought, whoa, first of all, it's West Point. Like, I can't believe this has gotten there that fast because, wow. But then my second thought was, like, I'm with my grandpop who just heard this story. Like, I can't imagine this is going to be something he's like, what a win. And I'm like going to have to eat breakfast and just hear, like, and not that I even would necessarily disagree with what I thought he was going to say, but it's morning time. Like, I don't want to have this conversation. And then he said something that I will never forget. He heard the story, and not even really to me, just kind of like out loud, just said, with like some kind of chagrin, like an element of like, and he goes, well, I guess that's progress. Like, not really mad, but clearly not understanding it, but just recognizing it's not really up to him, which was very profound. And then I almost kind of got a sense of like, well, this is from him. If West Point's allowing this, he respects West Point and the men and women who go there and what come out of there enough as an institution that if they decide to do this, well, regardless of what I think, this is what it is. And if I don't understand it, that doesn't mean it's wrong. Doesn't mean it's right, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. And you should never really be the guy who lets what you think is wrong affect your daily life, because you can't change them. And that's not to discredit people who organize grassroots shit and yell through megaphones on street corners and talk about blah, 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 blah. I understand the importance of all that. That's all well and good and dandy. But most of it's not going to work or do anything. So, rather than let your day get ruined by the radio or the TV, just go about your day. It was such a profound thing for me to see that. Because for a lot of levels, at first I thought, well, I know what his reaction to this will be. And then secondly, I was wrong. So I had to deal with, you shouldn't judge, that whole thing. And then the idea that someone could accept as progress an idea they don't understand, or at least their knee-jerk reaction is to disagree with. And then I thought, what about the importance of having trust in these institutions, like West Point, like our government, And oh boy, is it a slippery slope having trust in your government, you fucking sucker. Let's see how that gets you. Let's see how far that gets you. Let's see how many single car crashes that gets you in. But there's something admirable about having trust in an institution. It was a profound point from a guy who's pretty fucking smart, who used to work for the government. So the government can't be all bad. That's a cold, hard fact I had to face. Believe me, it's wonderful to just hate every aspect of the government. Boy, is it an easy stance to take up. It's a position that requires little to no effort occupying, but you got to realize that fact. And this was a very nuanced, awesome fella eating flapjacks in Jackson Hole, loving life. Greatest concern what this waitress's daughter was doing for prom in Wyoming. Just accidentally teaching me a very profound and insightful lesson about life. One that I thought about while I was hearing everyone offer their opinions about how important it is to protect women's swimming. Shut the fuck up about women's swimming. Women's sports. If you want to have a tough conversation, let's have it. Women's sports should not exist. Women's sports exist because professional men's sports subsidize the leagues. That is a fact. Did you know the WNBA is 100% subsidized by the NBA? And not that long ago, there was a whole movement from WNBA players for equal pay. What the fuck is that all about? I'm all about treating everyone equally. But if we are to treat everyone equally, that would mean, at least to me, you should get an equal share of the money that your league generates. You should get an equal share of someone else's money who's in an entirely different thing. The only similarity between the WNBA and the NBA is the shape of the ball. It's not even the fucking size of the ball, if you want to talk about balls and swimming pools. A WNBA basketball is literally smaller. The only common ground is the shape of the ball. It certainly ain't the amount of people who attend the games. It ain't the stadium sizes of the games. It ain't the amount of teams. It ain't the amount of players on the teams. It's preposterous to think that a league that generates maybe $20 a game through hot dogs, where the players should be paid as much as LeBron James. That's not fair. That's not fair at all. That would be taking money from NBA players, right? Wouldn't that exactly be what that is? So there is no integrity to argue for within women's sports. Sports are not a job. We've really conflated and I'm not going to go on that trite-ass speech about, athletes making millions of dollars is wrong and one about doctors and firefighters, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, all that valid to some extent. But entertainment is a business. Entertainment as a business exists because people want to be entertained. And what they find entertaining is what they spend their money on. Ergo, the entertainment business caters to the needs of those who want to pay to be entertained. Who is paying to be entertained by a WNBA game? Again, we find ourselves with the argument, perhaps the parents of WNBA players, but even they, again, I promise you, much like swimming, don't give a fuck about the integrity of the WNBA. They just want to see their little girl get buckets and then go home to her wife and peg her into oblivion. And if you're Brittany Griner's parents, you're probably spending many a sleepless nights because she can't go home and peg her wife. She's stuck in the gulag because she got cocky and bought a vape pen into Russia. And no one gives a shit despite all of the rallying that Brittany Griner's parents are doing. The political grassroots campaigns, they're on street corners with megaphones going door to door trying to get their little girl home, and no one gives a shit. No one cares. The entire community is far too interested in what's going on with Leah Thomas's dick and balls in the pool to get Brittany Griner home. And let's say you're a parent of a girl who is a swimmer and wants a scholarship, and you're really pissed off she might not get one because one less scholarship is available because a transgendered girl can swim fast despite the weight of her dick and balls, I guess. So let's say you're one of those parents, right? I still think you have an argument to be made. It's valid. I'll hear it. But on the flip side, if you're the dude who is a average swimmer, ranked 496th or whatever, willing to put on makeup, take them glasses off, and get in the pool, girl. You want to be famous, take it off. If you're that guy, and this is not to belittle anyone's transgendered struggle, but if you're the dude willing to say I'm trans and continue to compete and switch divisions to compete with women, take all that media coverage, all of that attention, get all of those death threats, all of the shit and the baggage that comes with being the Jackie Robinson of swimming, that is a real fucking article I saw someone tweet about. I think it was from Vox or something ridiculous. But if you're the dude willing to do that in your transition and continue to compete and get all that bullshit, boy, I wouldn't want to do that. And I think there's probably a lot of people who may identify as transgendered, and few of them even less, but who probably are decent swimmers, who wouldn't want to do that just for living their truth, because what kind of fucking shitstorm would that be? So maybe if Leah gonna take on all that, how much do you think all that's worth? If you had to get that much level of attention, ridicule, hate, support, just all of it, everyone pretended to give a shit all of a sudden about you and your dick and balls in the Speedo, how much do you think that's worth? How much do you need to be paid to do that personally? It might be about the dollar amount as much as a scholarship to the University of Pennsylvania. And it's only one scholarship. It's not like there's a barrage of transgendered swimmers beating down the door of the coach trying to take a spot on the team. This is one guy. This is one girl. Woman, swimmer. Zimmer. Zimmer. Take them glasses off and get in the pool. Bitch. That might have been distasteful. But it's one spot. And for all the hoopla you're going to endure, just for carrying around a little extra weight, for having 4 tits, 2 on your chest, 2 in your sack, it might be worth the education at the University of Pennsylvania, which is an Ivy League school, but it's like the fucking community college of Ivy League schools. It's not Harvard. It's not Harvard. You went to the University of Pennsylvania. If you're really in the know, if you're like me and you meet someone who went to the University of Pennsylvania, I just think you have a fucking degree in writing really small. I think your parents maybe escaped a war not unlike the one happening with Russia and the Ukraine right now, to Northeast Philadelphia for you to attend a charter school, cuddle up real gay-like with teachers, and just, master the methodology of cheating on tests. Really, really hone in your STEM scores, get into the University of Pennsylvania, and hopefully do surgery on someone that you are not qualified to perform it on. That's what the University of Pennsylvania is churning out. I can promise you that. That's an inside look. That's a peek behind the curtain. I know that to be a fact. Am I to generalize every single University of Pennsylvania student that way? No, that would be unfair. Some alum include Donald Trump of NBC reality show fame and presidency. My grandpop, who is a fucking wonderful man. Earlier in this episode, he ended up graduating with a degree from the University of Pennsylvania. He didn't start there. It took him like 7 years and he bounced around. He was real bummed he didn't graduate from LaSalle. He ended up with just settling with a degree from the University of Pennsylvania, which is the most baller thing I've ever heard anyone tell me. He's like, yeah, I ended up with the degree from these bozos. What was I going to do? But I needed the paper. That's how cool he is. So the alum has, former presidents, government agents, transgendered swimmers, and cheaters. First-generation American cheaters. So, again, do we care about swimming? Do we care about the morals of the University of Pennsylvania's athletic programs? Or are you just curious whether or not Leah is tugging along her DMBs in the pool? Wouldn't that weigh her down? Wouldn't that make her slower? I'm just saying. It's common sense. And I must say, I'm ecstatic that we're not talking about Juicy Smollett anymore. The last episode, I was like, man, I don't blame China and Russia for thinking we suck because we're preoccupied with stupid shit. So on one hand, I'm extremely grateful. We are no longer preoccupied with stupid shit like Juicy Smollett. We're instead preoccupied with very important shit like college female swimming and whether or not someone's dick and balls makes them slower or faster in a pool. Meanwhile, there's leaked documents showing that the Solomon Islands, which is a country near Fiji, near New Zealand, north of Australia, which has historically always been backed by Australia, similar to the United States and Puerto Rico, there's leaked documents that this emerging economy, this emerging country, has a secret deal in place with China to accept Chinese money, to build infrastructure, cities, to accept Chinese policemen, Chinese military officers physically to be sent there to help whip everybody into shape. And then the president of the Solomon Islands said that we have a great deal to learn from the Chinese and we could benefit from the Chinese involvement here on the Solomon Islands. We have that shit going on, leaked documents proving it, which was a plan in place kept secret for months. And this is concerning because China, not unlike how they feel about Taiwan, John Cena in China that is, feel that Taiwan is Chinese property. Motherfuck everyone who says they're Taiwanese, that's not real, we're gonna kill you or you assimilate. They feel pretty similar to Australia in that sense. Now, they might not look as similar to them, not that that has anything to do with anything, but they just think Australia's theirs too. So it should concern you when we have leaked documents proving that China has advanced deals with emerging neighboring countries to Australia, which used to get all their shit from Australia. So China's inching. Russia's they're past inching. They're taking feet at a time. Is anyone concerned about this? Because it's like Russia and China, two biggest land masses on that side of the globe, are both respectively starting to circle towards us. From both flanks, from both sides. And we're worried whether or not someone can be both genders and swim in a pool. And I can't take credit for this idea. I'm pretty sure it was Dave Chappelle who said it first. But it just seems like, based on the fact that to me, the whole transgendered issue within the cultural zeitgeist is about 4 years old, about 48 months long, that struggle. It also feels like the only reason anyone gives a shit about it at all is because we're talking about transgendered people that at one point at least used to be white men, used to be white guys, used to be straight acting white guys who, for one reason or another, and those reasons could vary, for reasons of they were collegiate swimmers who just weren't good enough and they felt their potential and their scholarship money and potential for advertising dollarships after college would better be met if they cut off their dick and balls. Some motivations could be that they just felt that they were born in the wrong body. There is a spectrum to the reasons people are transgendered. That's actually a progressive point out of me, despite how I may have framed it. What I just said there was pretty, I'm like, hey, I'm a good guy, folks. I'm a good guy telling people, shut the fuck up about you don't want Leah Thomas swimming. I say Leah Thomas swim. I say swim as fast as you can, girl. I say swim because she's a senior. And as soon as this school year's over and you graduate with your degree in cheating on tests from the University of Pennsylvania, you're not going to be swimming much longer. I can promise you that. And if you go to a pool, once you graduate and you're just there to, that's how you stay in shape. It's just, it's what you do. You're a swimmer. Eventually, the transgendered woman going to the pool every day, almost habitually, you're gonna start to get some looks from the other people at the pool. I'm not saying that's right. In fact, that's wrong. We should accept all in society. We're all God's children. God bless her. God love her. But I'm just saying the free market will tell you when it's weird. Right now, people might give a shit. Right now, you might think it's great you're getting all this attention. You might not have a hard time with this attention at all. It might be exactly what you wanted if I was to be as cynical as possible in this situation. Or it could be very stressful. And the least you could do to deal with this in your pursuit to live honestly would be to get a scholarship. Would be to tell the parents of those girls who are denied scholarship money because you took it, telling them to fuck off and, just kiss your balls or something. Suck your tits. I don't know. We got March Madness happening right now. Baseball is back when we thought it might not be. Tom Brady just came out of retirement. You mean to tell me Leah Thomas is up there with those stories right now? The same amount of people are watching collegiate swimming. I don't even know how this became a news story. Was this shit televised the first time when she won? How the fuck did we even find out about this? There weren't fans there when she swam real fast, when she did the thing you do before you drown. So shut the fuck up about it. Let the girl swim. Who cares? I fucking don't. You need to pick and choose what you care about. You can't be told what you care about. If you really, really care about it, I'm sorry your daughter has a shot at losing her scholarship because this dude is willing to endure ridicule for lacing up his heels, putting on makeup, taking his glasses off, and getting in the pool. But like a Crip said, I got way too many blues for any more bad news. So why don't we pay fucking attention to what China's doing? 我生者快乐